The number one moment at Dolphin Stadium took place on October 26, 1997. The '97 World Series would be a matchup of two title-hungry teams, the Cleveland Indians and the Florida Marlins. The Indians were after their first title since 1948, while the Marlins were playing their first World Series. The series would be highly competitive, with offense being a big factor, and the series would be tied after 6 games, but Game 7 would be a classic pitcher's duel with a thrilling climax. Starting were rookie phenom Jarrett Wright for the Indians against Game 3 starter Al Leiter for the Marlins. The Indians would strike first in the third. Tony Fernandez, the hero of Game 6 of the American League Championship Series, lined a single to center, scoring 2 runs. Wright, who had a productive rookie season and had pitched some great games for the Indians in the postseason, continued to make a name for himself, keeping the Marlins in check for the next few innings. In the 7th, Bobby Bonilla would come to the plate leading off and would hit a home run to narrow the lead in half. The Marlins would bring the go-ahead run to the plate, but the Indians would get out of it and were 6 outs away from the title. After an uneventful 8th, the Indians were looking for some insurance. In the top of the 9th, Jim Thome came up with 1 out, and All-Star Game MVP Sandy Alomar Jr. at first and hit a single, sending Alomar to third, and bringing up ALCS MVP Marquise Grissom. Rob Nen would come in and get Grissom to hit a ground ball to shortstop Edgar Renteria, with Alomar running towards the plate. Even though the ball likely would have been an inning-ending double play, Renteria threw the ball to the plate and Alomar was out. The Indians still had another chance, however, with Brian Giles coming to the plate with runners on first and second, but he would fly out. The score remained 2-1, and the table would be set for one of the all-time great World Series climaxes. Jose Mesa came in to try to close the door for the Indians, and gave up a leadoff single to Moisés Alou. Bobby Bonilla then came up. He had homered in his previous at-bat, and had a chance to come through again, but would strike out. Then Charles Johnson came to the plate, and with 2 strikes, he would line a single into right, putting runners on the corners with only 1 out, bringing up Craig Counsell. Counsell would hit a line drive to Manny Ramirez in right field. Manram would catch the ball, but it would be deep enough to score Alou, and the game was tied. Mesa would then retire Jim Eisenreich on a ground ball, and the game would go extra innings. Nen would strike out the side in the top of the 10th, and in the bottom of the inning, the Marlins would get to Mesa again, putting runners on first and second with only 1 out. Pinch hitter John Cangelosi came up with a chance to come through, but he would strike out. Charles Nagy would then come in and retire Moisés Alou on a fly ball, sending the game into the 11th. Jay Powell would come in for the Marlins and keep the Indians at bay, but in the bottom of the inning, the Marlins would threaten once again. Bobby Bowe led off the inning and grounded a single to center, and after a failed bunt attempt, Craig Counsell came up and hit a ball between first and second. Second baseman Tony Fernandez ran towards the ball, and it looked like he was going to have a play, but he ended up misplaying the ball. It was likely that he was distracted by Bonilla, who was running towards second base, but nevertheless, the Marlins had runners at the corners with 1 out. After an intentional walk loaded the bases, Devon White came up and hit a ground ball to Fernandez, whose only play was at home. With Bonilla charging toward the plate, Fernandez threw the ball home, and the play was close, but the throw would beat Bonilla, and there were 2 outs. The bases remained loaded, and Renteria, the first Colombian-born player to play in a World Series, came to the plate. With a chance to mark his spot in baseball lore, he lined a ball toward the mound. Nagy reached his glove up, but could not catch it as the ball went into center field, scoring Counsell with the winning run and giving the Marlins their first World Championship, making them at the time the fastest team ever to win a World Series.